introduce yourself, and then please tell us when you first came to meet Nataraja Guru.
I first met him when I was 19 years old, and I was finally a BA student. He said I have to introduce myself.
Yeah, you should say who you are first, in case we don't know.
People call me all sorts of things, but Vinaya Chaitanya has been the Diksha name. Guru Nitya added this Swami business to it and said that now we are stuck with this. So there we are.
Okay, good. So we know who you are. And at 19, you were a BA student?
I was finally a BA student, English language and literature, which has been my passion from very early childhood. I liked languages in general. I liked poetry from very small age. I had published poems in Malayalam already in some journals before I met Nataraja Guru. So I come from a kind of, aspirationally at least, I saw myself as a writer before I met Guru. And of course, as everyone those days knew, the 60s being as turbulent as they were. And when you are an adolescent in Kerala with its, as Nataraja Guru would call it, crisscross cultural patterns, sufficiently complicated to confuse even saner people, had done their bit by me thoroughly by the time I met him. I was in shambles, and I couldn't see the point of this college, where all this poetry that had got me into studies of literature had disappeared so mysteriously from the classes which were supposed to get me into the thick of poetry and make me write poetry, help nurture the writer and poet in me. And he wasn't anywhere to be found. And what was left had not enough interest even to make it to the classes. So I was getting more and more into problems because college was quite Christian, strict, believed in old sayings like spare the rod, spoil the child.
Boy.
And also raised in that kind of atmosphere, it was quite confusing. And I used to run away actually from home. From very early days, there was this kind of running away from home scene. 10 years old was when I first did it. Every year I would do it on a trip between school and home or home and school. Like, disappear for longest I ever got away was like 2 weeks. I didn't know enough about this possibilities of going to the Himalayas and all that. So when you run away, you just run away to some uncle's house, some cousin's house, and they invariably would come and find you and take you back and thrash you for that. And then you go back to school, they will thrash you some more. And then you get to college where they don't actually physically beat you. But that's because you're almost as big as them and you could beat them back if you want. But the attitude doesn't change then.
You're supposed to be already cowed by then, too.
Yeah. And you kind of give in. And I couldn't. Sure. So they were actually taking me to the first appearing psychiatrists or psychotherapists of Kerala. And it was quite funny because I didn't feel anything was wrong with me. But then everything was wrong because I was not fitting in. And all these repeated conflicts with whether parental authority, and the teachers also are just duplicating that basically and then throw a lot of big words into it. But basically it was the same kind of oppression and lack of understanding of your some kind of child within you which is trying to grope through all this and learn something and get bigger.
So I can't imagine you even had heard of Nataraja Guru. in
No, I
that
had not
milieu.
heard at all of Nataraja Guru. When for me there's a lot of things which I can't explain unless I see some thing more than me interfering with my life at this time and making my father make a move of the whole family from where he was born, where I was born, etc., to this northernmost part of Kerala, near where Guru had his Gurukula island home. So my father moved there, and same time thereabouts, all the college teachers in Kerala went on a strike for pay hike or whatever. This was an unheard of thing, like never had college professors struck work like that ever. And till then, kind of teaching was generally looked up to as some vocation. It was not all about salaries. It was seen some kind of noble profession, and teachers were a big looked up to. Anyway, I did not have such illusions because I had already been 5 years in college and been very disillusioned about higher learning. Schools were far better. Because actually you are exposed to a lot of things by your reading. And then the actuality contradicts everything that you are dreaming of, thinking of. So, and then being taken to the psychiatrist, etc., and knowing that you are not mad or anything. And all these guys tell you is that, okay, you take 3 of these pills and 2 of those pills. So what has that got to do with this? So when a neighbor friend of mine, my father's, at his new place, Payano, which is near the silent home, it's the town where you get off the train to go to Island Home. This neighbor he still lives and is a good friend. I sent him all Gurukula books, which his children read to him now. He knew Nataraja Guru. He was visually handicapped. And he used to come to my parents' place, half my younger brothers read the daily newspaper to him in evenings. So when I came home from college, because his strike was continuing, so they asked us to vacate the hostels and go home because the strike was indefinite. So I come home and I meet this friend who, through Nitya's work with the blind, had met Nataraja.
Interesting.
Very interesting. How these
The connections, yeah. Good.
And Nataraja Guru had always, till this thing happened, used to put Nitya down for that blind work. After I came, he could see a point. He said, why Nitya had to go through all that to have this one guy bring one guy. But to me now, when I think of it, and we chant this Guru Stotram, which has this I was blinded by ignorance, and Guru put his ointment of wisdom, Ajnanatimidhantasya, Jnana Anjana, the collyrium of wisdom, and opened my eyes. To that Guru I bow down, etc. So anyway, his friend tells me, hey man, Nataraja Guru is coming to this Gurukula island home. Beautiful place. And he is a great man, great scholar. Narayana Guru's direct disciple. You must meet him. And for me, the only thing I had heard of the Guru, the word Guru, one was that we had a neighbor who was my school teacher, whom I disliked, whom we would meet every morning when we went to the paddy fields to see to the water and all that with my father. My father would tell me, say namaste to this schoolmaster. And I would tell him, I don't like him. And my father would say, you have to show respect to the gurus. This was the saying. In association with this particular gentleman had made this word guru quite negative in my mind. The other positive thing was there was Krishna and Kuchela who had gone together to one Gurukula. And Sandipani Rishi was the Guru. This we had read it something in school. Other than that, I had no notion. So for me, Gurus was some age-old Hindu myth kind of thing. They don't actually exist. So I asked him, what is this Guru, Nataraja Guru? Some kind of bishop or priest, high priest? And he said, no, you come and meet him. He said, you will find it very easy. He said, I've met many of these kind of guys. Because he also said he was a doctor from Sorbonne. And we had many doctors at the university. It was full of doctors. Not from Sorbonne generally, but Oxford, Cambridge. Didn't impress. But then this guy said, well, we have to take a boat, cross, then we have to walk for 6 miles or so. I need an escort, and I want to see him. I have met him before. He comes only once a year, and I would like to go. Have his blessing. I got even more suspicious, his blessing part. Some religious. I was totally against all that. Kind of communist, Marxist ideas regarding religion at that time. But when he said he needed an escort, I said, on. I'll escort you. It's a beautiful place. He said, yeah, I'll come. Nothing. I told my folks, said, okay, I'm going with Kuniraman in the morning to the island home. Gurukula, some ashram or one of Narayana Guru's disciples comes tomorrow. He wants to go, so I'm going with him. Anyway, it's holidays, so I went. But seeing him, and he was surrounded by hippies and various.
So what year was this?
71.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought you had known him earlier. 71. So all the gang was there, basically.
Oh.
Yeah. So how far, was it a long boat ride?
No, it's because just a river separates it from the mainland.
I see.
And pretty broad as rivers go.
Yeah.
Or the backwaters, actually.
Yeah.
And
okay. And then the island? is
Maybe 10 minutes boat. And later on they built a bridge, but not when we were there.
Yeah, for the military, probably.
Not
But-
long before.
So now, is this a low island or is it rocky?
It's
mountains?
it's actually a mountainous island in that. It's very special because to have a mountain suddenly jut out of the sea, and also the flora, and even some of the animals like armadillos.
Really?
Uh,
Oh my God.
yes, that roll up and
They're,
roll down the
they're
hill.
definitely yogis. Yeah.
And
Animal yogis.
and monkeys and a mixed population of Muslim and Hindu, old
So there was a village on it.
old seaport, many villages,
Many villages.
and all mostly fishers, but also paddy growing. And
Yeah.
the fertile,
I've never even seen a photograph of it or anything. So,
it's the most beautiful place on earth I have seen.
no,
I wish.
Hmm.
Because, this again, before I forget, this island is very significant that Narayana Guru pointed it out to Nataraja when they were in a train going to Mangalore and said, this is the center of the earth.
Wow.
And 50 years later, Thambi managed to talk friends into buying a piece of land there. And it went up into 117 acre and 112 acre, two pieces, two centers, with 1 kilometer in between, and the second place had a spring on top. It was called the Fountain Point Gurukula, and the other was Island Home, Gurukula Island Home.
I never knew. So,
Beautiful walk after you cross the boat, watching the sea. On the road was like halfway up the mountain. And it has kind of 7 peaks or ridges, you could say, and therefore it was called Ezhimala, the 7-peaked island. By some people say it looked like a rat, therefore it's Ezhimala. Who knows? It never looked like a rat, you know. And I could see 5 of these peaks.
So it was one of the first Gurukulas then.
No.
There
It
were a
was
lot by
started
then?
in 65.
Yeah. Well, there weren't that many in those
No,
days, were there?
no.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we got all these new centers like Wayanad and all that in the 70s.
Yeah.
When there was a land laws changed, and a lot of landlords would, instead of surrendering excessive land to the government, made gifts of it to ashramas and gurukulas, especially under some well-intentioned pressure from K.V. Anandan, who was a revenue under officer at that time in Wayanad. That's how all those Wayanad places came.
Oh,
Except for Way 3, I think. So
just come.
you walk on this road, which is like halfway on the mountainside. So you see some of the mountain, then very broad beaches. It's one of the longest and the most beautiful beach I've seen. And with some places with fresh water, pools. You know, like kind of what you read of in South Sea, Somerset Maugham kind of thing. And really shining blue sea, and it's beach and coconut palms below you, and then lagoons. So it was very beautiful, and it was not yet because we were on the west of the mountain, still not hot, that's early morning. So nice walk. We reached the Gurukula about 9 in the morning. I see this old man. So we walk up some steps from the road to the Gurukula. Large courtyard and open porch. Pictures of these gurus and lamps and all that were there on the walls. 2 kerosene lamps actually burning by pictures of Narayana Guru. Small kerosene lamps in Kerala, you see them with small glass. At least those days, before the electricity became universal. So, there was this old man sitting with many long-haired freaks, variously not attired, mostly. I mean, some with, like Robert had just a loin cloth on, and some with a Teitsworth towel. Nobody with a shirt.
So they were all Europeans then?
Mostly Europeans, but some Indians, glorious ones like Field Marshal Cariappa, first Indian General of Independent Indian Army. His Highness the Maharaja of Porbandar and Her Highness Dr. Chabra, ex-chief of the Archaeological Survey of India. People like that. Not a large gathering, but very select people. Later I came to know these people. Mark Gerwert, Gary
Davis?
So
was there a class going on, or it was
no,
over?
there was something going on because we walked up, we could hear laughter. And these steps kind of bring you to the side of this porch where they were sitting facing the sea and walking up. So somebody could have seen us walking up. By the time we reached the top of the steps, the Guru got up and came to this. So I thought, since he knew my friend and his handicapped and all that, so Guru was coming to him. And he was holding his hand out to me. Good morning. But I had my right hand in my friend's hand because I was leading him up the steps and saying, okay, now step, step, like this. So, and I couldn't put my left hand out. Guru put his left hand out and took my hand and said, you are welcome. So, again, because they know each other. So I kind of felt a little bit awkward because he was looking at me and taking my hand. And my friend Kunjiraman, hearing Guru, stopped, and so I left his hand. I stepped back and I said, he wanted to come see you, so I came. And he said, you're both most welcome. Please come.
This is a great lesson for all the Gurukulas. You like to be welcomed when you arrive and not ignored.
Yes.
Nataraja Guru knew that.
Yes, I felt very welcome because you are both very welcome.
Yeah,
so
and you are.
Both. And by this time, one of the students, hippies, had come, and he took my friend's hand because they could see he was handicapped. And Guru still had me by my hand.
You couldn't run away.
Took me in and seated me. And asked my friend if he had got married in the meantime, since they had met the year before. Later I came to know that Guru had told him to get married already 1 year ago. So this time he said, I really think you should. You have enough to support some poor girl who will be your eyes and read to you. And she can have some life, get out of it. And it will relieve some poor father's anxiety of finding a dowry for his daughter. Do that. What are you waiting for? And he said, I don't have a job. He said, but you have enough land, your family is enough to. You don't need to go to work to support a woman, and you need help. And we left it at that. Turned back to me and said, you must be from the Union Christian College. And so I said, yes, sir. How did you know? And he said, well, that's the only college where they teach English still. They still teach English. And you speak that. And then he said, my friend Nitya did his intermediate there.
That's right.
And he said, you must have heard of Nitya Chaitanya Yati. And indeed I had, because Nitya Chaitanya Yati used to write in Malayalam journals. And I couldn't understand what his articles were about or anything, but I knew the name, at least. A few times I had seen this name or some. And I had thought this name was very unusual, Nitya Chaitanya Yati. And of course, some jokes about Yati being the abominable snowman. All this was there. So when Guru said, you must have heard of my friend Nitya. He's quite popular as a writer. I said, yes, sir. And I was calling him so. And then somebody brought tea. I mean, he had never asked for tea to be brought or anything. I still remember that. It was like kind of done.
Yeah.
Tea was brought.
Automatic.
And some water was brought. Tea was brought. We had tea. And then he said, we have this World Conference for Peace starting tomorrow. And then he asked Bennington, the secretary, to give me a brochure. And it had a very nice photograph of the sea with a quote from Tagore on it. It says, on the seashore of endless worlds, children meet with shouts and dances. That was the... And inside was this details about the conference and how November 11th was Armistice Day. And this peace conference happening there had its inception in Nataraja Guru, who lived on the same coast, came from very common folk, etc. So it was it was only right that this secluded no man's land was chosen by Providence to host such an event, which, though lacking in quantity, was hope would make up in quality. It's beautiful, and being a literature language student,
It's caught your attention.
yes,
Yeah.
I mean, good writing.
Yeah. You didn't need correction.
So, first, the laughter that I heard before I saw him, and the warmth with which he welcomed us, and then talking, and then saying, we have this. So I kind of glanced through this 3-page brochure, and then quickly, and he said, I have no student delegates yet. I would be honored if you would find it convenient to participate. I can give you a hut either down on the beach or up here on the hills. Or you could stay in the dormitory. So I thought, that sounds quite interesting. So I nudged my friend, and he kind of said, no, he can't. And I have nothing to do, college is off. So I said, yes, sir, I would like to. I will go home, leave my friend back home, and I will return. We start tomorrow morning at 9:30. I said, I'll be back. Then he asked somebody, is the food ready? Food was ready. He said, please eat and go. We had already had breakfast. And it was not time for us to eat. It was only like 10 o'clock. And he said, we eat early. We don't eat breakfast. We eat now, and then we will eat in the evening. And then suddenly he added, during the conference days, there will be breakfast, lunch, tea, dinner, like all other people do. He was reassuring me. Anyway, I went back with my friend and went home, told my mom that I would be going next morning for this 10-day conference at Gurukula. She didn't mind, since there was no classes happening. Probably thought I would be bored at home. And my father wasn't that readily agreeable. He said, why do you want to go to this ashram? I said, what do you have there? I said, well, I want to find out. They have a world conference and people from all over the world. Like he had already heard of the place. He said, some hippies.
You probably heard bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Said, some hippies with that Nataraja Guru. What do you want? And I said, well, I'll find out. So, anyway, I went next morning early, so I could make it there before time. So I reached long before time. Somebody came and said, breakfast is still going. It's up. So I went to, I think, upma or something. It wasn't very nice. I ate because can't leave what is served. So ate it all and went up while I was walking up again, somebody was walking down, one of these hippies. And he was like with a big packet of beedies. He was handing out beedies. So he was near me and he said, "You smoke beedies?" So I said, "Yes, I smoke cigarettes. I have some." "Well, try these. These are good." So he gave me a packet of beedies, matches, as I'm walking up. So I go up and Nataraja Guru was sitting there on his chair, looking at the ocean, I think waiting. There was still some time for the... He was alone. And he said, "Good morning. You have come back." I said, "Yes, sir. I'll stay for the conference, the whole 10 days.
Oh, 10-day conference.
Huh?
Oh, no.
So then he again said, "Want to be down at the beach or one of the huts here?" So I said, "I don't care." Then he checked with somebody. I was put with Mr. Nataraja, who later became Chidambara Theatre. V. Nataraja, short Nataraja, one of Guru's disciples from Singapore. He was also Guru's student when he was a schoolmaster in Varkala. Passed away some years ago. Very kind person. I think Guru, looking back, I think Guru knew what he was doing.
No, I think he probably did. So,
it wasn't like random, where to put this guy or put him with somebody. No, put him with Nataraja. No, so I was with this Natarajan later. Anyway, so the conference was to start. Maharaja raised the flag. Field Marshal Karyappa saluted the flag. And it was like so serious that it was funny to me. I thought it's quite funny. But he is a full field marshal and he was in his dress uniform, with all his medals and his king. And Guru requested him, "Your Majesty, now please," and
wow.
it's kind of, out of something like Shakespearean kind of drama with a king and a general in uniform and his queen all powdered up. And then all these hippies like Robert in his loincloth.
The pack of cards there, yeah.
And you have your Field Marshal Karyappa with his whole chest and tummy full of ribbons and medals, and Robert with his teeth straight, trying to practice Kechari Mudra when the flag is being raised, and telling everybody that that's how the Kundalini must rise up. That's what.
You had no idea what he was talking
about.
No,
of course. I thought some crazy guy. Yeah. Because he was also standing on one leg, trying to push his tongue back into the beyond the uvula. Robert. So, boy, I thought it was pretty strange for a world conference. And then the session started. I could catch snatches. And man, I was so proud of my English till that day. And I said, "God, this is English, is it? I can't understand what it. Starting with dialectics. And so the first paper had me like really wondering, maybe I shouldn't have been so enthusiastic about accepting it.
10 days of this is going to be really tough.
This is going to be tough. I don't understand a word of what's being read.
So
And
this-
some guy, I think Mark Gowert or some holy Swami, big senior dude, was rattling away this thing. I know it's English because you make out the propositions and all that. And then there was a tea break. So, and I saw people smoking right around. This was very. So anyway, I stood aside, smoked my cigarette. Then the bell went. The next paper, which is even worse. Third paper was very nice. A guy with a lot of humor. Kind of. Even Guru had. Very loud laughter was happening. Even that, I couldn't understand what it was all about. Higher people laughing. Also, I had trouble with American accent.
Oh, sure.
Amazingly. Most of these guys were American. Or Flemish, like Mark Gowert. Even Mark spoke better English than Mark. Then there was Gary Davis talking about world government. And we had world government by Bertrand Russell in college just before.
Oh, great.
Something connected.
Mm.
I said, world government.
Yeah, because I think Russell knew Gary Davis, or he knew of him. I think there was an actual connection between them.
This was, I think, before Gary had actually. Russell wrote this even before.
Yeah, but this was from the 50s. I think they
Yeah.
were admirers. Russell
Yeah,
admired
probably.
Gary Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Russell was a great man.
Yeah. Oh, great.
So, this became interesting. Even though, again, there was a lot I could not understand. But at least I
Started
said,
to
okay,
get
now
something.
at least, no, something. And so, and Gary said that people could approach him in person anytime while he was there and talk. And he would be also be issuing world passports, etc. And so I thought, okay, I will talk to this gentleman later about this world government. Because I had very serious questions about army. What would the world government do? Like, world army.
Yeah.
And anyway, that day was not bad. Then the evening prayer, that is apart from the conference sessions, all this Devadasanam and the chanting. And then we had dinner, then somebody was playing guitars and some music, which I listened to for some time. Then Natarajan invited me to go to the hut, so we went. I still remember asking him the meaning of Purnamada. Purnamada. And he always used to laugh at me till the end, saying, whenever we met, he would say, oh, here comes the guy who wanted to know the last mantra, the first. That was But he explained it very nicely to me.
Sure he did. That's a good question.
That he used as zero plus zero minus zero remains zero. Later, of course, found out that he was an engineer. So for him, it was all. And this is why he got on very well with Nataraja Guru. Because this mathematical thing which Nataraja Guru was fully into before.
Yeah.
It was with his STP trip. And after that, the portrayed language and color and light became very significant to him.
The one he had in San Francisco.
Yeah. So, for example, when other and older disciples of Guru talk about him, you hear of this very harsh, exacting, frightening figure of a master. And for me, Nataraja Guru was the gentlest. He used to stroke and pat my head and also ask somebody, doesn't he look like Jimi Hendrix? Anyway, these are all later studies. So I stayed for this conference that night, Natarajan explaining this to me. The next day, so I had spoken to Natarajan about how I was finding it very complicated. Why can't these things be said simpler language? Like how he could explain this thing to me. Very simply. Why do we... And why is there no kind of poetry? This was also mine. Why can't it be said more? And he talked about the need to communicate and also the need to have some familiarity with the terminology of the Gurukula, which took time. Anyway, his conference things would be published, he told me. And later, they would send me a booklet that gave my address.
Did that ever happen?
Yeah, it was published, called Unitive Understanding. I myself...
Oh, that's Unitive Understanding.
Yeah, I myself edited those things later, the next year.
Okay, that's a different Unitive Understanding.
We had two editions.
No, I'm thinking of Unitive Philosophy. But,
No,
so do you
Unitive Understanding.
Do you have a copy here?
I have a single
I'd love to see it.
library copy. Yes. So I stayed, and the next day was on education, and Natarajan had given me some kind of introduction to what the Gurukula thing of education being a lifelong process, etc. And it was not as bad as the previous day, and the other people. So even though again it was very complicated, all these different names and theories and negative, what's negative, what's positive. Negative meant bad to me. Huh? So, negative education? How can you ask somebody to have negative education? Education is all about positive things, right? And things like this. So, but it was getting better, and also I was making friends with these people. This was actually and in the evenings, or early mornings, you would go down to the beach. So you would find people swimming. I was not swimming, but I would go bathe in this fresh water pond. I never went to the sea at this time.
It was like
This day of the education sessions. In the night prayer class, Guru talked about the Gurukula type of education and how young students would come with a bundle of firewood and approach the Guru and ask to be taught. And this firewood symbolized lifelong dedication and service to wisdom. And that he would keep the fire going, and the teaching itself was a fire and willingness to become the fuel himself, etc. Oh, it was great. And it was unlike anything that had been said in these papers and sessions. And this was the first thing that he had taught in that conference. I mean, apart from telling people to talk or...
Right, sure. So you finally got some poetry coming. That's beautiful. So was he like the fatherly host of this whole thing? Was he eager? Was he sort of circumspect? Or what,
he was a witness.
Come across?
He was also, he was very, I could see that he was motivating everybody. But he himself was quite out of it. Because I also remember heated discussion on the day of World Government about an action program. Nitya wanted an action program. How do we go about it? Was the question.
But Nitya wasn't at this conference.
Nitya was at this conference.
Nitya was in Portland in 71 in the fall. So how's that possible? I was in the Portland Gurukula with him.
I went to South Dakota.
Okay.
This is where I met Deborah.
Yeah.
Nitya is in Portland.
But he was in fall in 70 also, so there's something we'll have to look up.
No, maybe this is Shastankot like that.
I think it must have been Shastankot.
Anyway, there was this big argument about action program.
Yeah.
How do we go? How do
Talk
we,
about an action program.
that's wood apple.
A wood apple just almost killed us all.
No, it's a bounty of Mother Nature.
Yeah.
So, this talk was, so this action program also was, all Guru would say was that was putting the cart before the horse. Let the understanding come. Action programs would take care of themselves.
Right. They follow the wisdom rather than precede it.
And I came from an activist background. Full activist background. Even extreme left activism until it became violent. I couldn't find that as the solution by eliminating an enemy. So this talk of Guru somehow, I said, wow, this is what I want, this teaching. So this was the evening class. I did not say anything. I said to Natarajan in my room in the hut at night, like what Guru was talking. Can we still do that? Like, does he? Or is what this was how it was? Or is it like this? No, you become his disciple. Can I become his disciple like this? And he said, yes, that's why he's talking. And this is why it's called Gurukula. And then I said, I would like to ask him to. And he said, you must ask him. If you feel that, you must ask him. So in the morning, I went to him. I had seen people touch his feet. I went and touched his feet and said, can I become your student? In the sense you taught last night, and be with you. And he hugged me, and he wept. And he said, I've been waiting for 50 years for people like you to come. I've made these places called Gurukulas. They've been waiting for people like you to feel free. Feel free. Stay as long as you like. Leave whenever you like. You are free. And feel at home. So then I asked him, shall I go bring firewood? And he said, that can always be done and taken to the kitchen. You will find out about all that, he said. Now, the conference, we have people helping in the kitchen and chopping wood.
So well, that seems like a perfect place to stop.
So
you've arrived.
So,
thank you.
Still chopping wood, picking up wood,
burning fires,
bringing it, lighting fires, setting people on fire these days more than any wood burned instead of cooking and caring and all. Just burn the guy up.
Okay. Well, that's really wonderful.